Hey everyone! Have you ever heard a strange clacking noise when turning your car? It can be a worrying sound, but don't worry, I'm here to help. In this video, we'll explore the common causes of this noise and how to diagnose the problem. We'll cover everything from worn-out CV joints to loose wheel bearings, so you can get your car back in tip-top shape. So buckle up and let's get started. CV joints are responsible for transferring power from the transmission to the wheels, while allowing them to turn at different angles. When they wear out, they can make a clicking or clunking noise when turning. This is because the worn joint allows the axle to move around more than it should, which causes the clicking sound. There are a few things you can do to check if your CV joints are worn. First, listen for a clicking or clunking noise when turning. If you hear this noise, it's a good indication that your CV joints are worn. Second, look for grease leaking from the CV joint boot. If you see grease, it means the boot has been damaged and the joint is no longer lubricated. This can cause the joint to wear out more quickly. If you think your CV joints are worn, it's important to get them replaced as soon as possible. Driving with worn CV joints can damage other parts of your car, such as the transmission or axles. The upper strut mounts are located at the top of the strut assembly and connect the strut to the car's body. They allow the strut to rotate as the car turns. When the upper strut mounts wear out, they can make a clunking or knocking noise when turning. This is because the worn mounts allow the strut to move around more than it should, which causes the knocking sound. There are a few things you can do to check if your upper strut mounts are worn. First, listen for a clunking or knocking noise when turning. If you hear this noise, it's a good indication that your upper strut mounts are worn. Second, look for signs of wear on the strut mounts, such as cracks or tears in the rubber. If you see any signs of wear, it's time to replace the mounts. If you think your upper strut mounts are worn, it's important to get them replaced as soon as possible. Driving with worn upper strut mounts can damage other parts of your car, such as the struts or tires. The steering gear is responsible for converting the driver's input into steering movement. When the steering gear wears out, it can make a variety of noises, including a clunking or grinding noise when turning. This is because the worn gears allow the steering wheel to move around more than it should, which causes the grinding sound. There are a few things you can do to check if your steering gear is worn. First, listen for a clunking or grinding noise when turning. If you hear this noise, it's a good indication that your steering gear is worn. Second, check the power steering fluid level. If the fluid level is low, it could be a sign of a leak in the steering gear. If you think your steering gear is worn, it's important to get it checked by a mechanic as soon as possible. Driving with a worn steering gear can be dangerous, as it can make it difficult to control the car. A clacking noise when turning can sometimes be caused by issues with the steering column. This could be due to worn-out bushings, a loose universal joint, or a problem with the steering rack. If you suspect a problem with the steering column, it's important to have it checked by a qualified mechanic as soon as possible. Another common cause of a clacking noise when turning is worn ball joints or tie rods. These components are responsible for connecting the steering knuckle to the control arm and the steering rack, respectively. When they become worn, they can cause a clunking or clacking noise when the wheels are turned. If you suspect a problem with your ball joints or tie rods, it's important to have them inspected and replaced as soon as possible. The solution to fixing a slap noise during rotation will depend on the underlying cause. If the noise is caused by worn ball joints or tie rods, then these components will need to be replaced. If the noise is caused by a problem with the steering column, then the specific issue will need to be diagnosed and repaired. Diagnosing a rattling noise when turning can be tricky, as there are several potential causes. However, there are a few things you can do to help narrow down the problem. First, try to identify when the noise occurs. Does it happen when you turn the wheel sharply, or only when you're making a slow turn? Does it happen at all speeds or only at certain speeds? Once you have a better understanding of when the noise occurs, you can start to look for potential causes. One way to diagnose the problem is to have someone turn the steering wheel while you listen for the noise. This can help you to identify the specific location of the noise. You can also try jacking up the front of the car and checking the ball joints and tie rods for play. If you find any play in these components, then they will likely need to be replaced. If you're not comfortable diagnosing the problem yourself, you can always take your car to a qualified mechanic. They will be able to diagnose the problem and recommend the appropriate repairs.